So welcome to our Special Ed Leaders meeting here today on September 10th. Glad to have you with us and really happy to jump in on our agenda. As you can see, we are shifting things around just a little bit just for today. Lauren is taking on the role that April or Brian have historically done in the past just to get everything set up for us and make sure we're running well here. So thank you, Lauren. Jamie Camacho is going to be in charge of our Q&A at the end today instead of Nina Marquise. And so like you, we just, displaying our versatility, our flexibility, our adaptability to do what needs to be done. So thank you, Lauren. And if anything comes up, don't hesitate to just, ask me to pause, and if you can't hear me or anything happens. Great. So our usual way that we like to go back over anything from the past through our recall section, look ahead to new information, and then plenty of time for Q&A at the end. And a real focus for today is going to be on thinking about students who have documented medical needs and need to participate in school remotely. So we have some new information we'll be bringing to you today. Allison Bagg will be joining me, my colleague, from our Educational Options Center here to talk about this a little bit further with you. So really excited about bringing you some new information and new opportunities for our students. But first, just our welcome, and want to reiterate that we're sort of changing the structure of these meetings. And so let me just explain a little bit more in further detail about what we're doing. So we are making these meetings topic specific, topic based. I know that recently I was talking to a superintendent who told me that, very often after our meetings, his special ed director would come into his office and say, "Oh, you wouldn't believe how much Russell just told me about," kind of like, it was like this, information overload coming out of these meetings. And our team thought, okay, we want to shift gears into a new school year. We've often made these kind of catch-all of everything special ed related, everything you need to know, trying to pack them into these meetings. But maybe that's not the best way of conveying information. And hopefully we won't have as many, new things that we have to keep sharing with you and keep going over. And so we want to make these a little deeper instead of shallower. So kind of deeper on certain topics, and really then shifting our audience to just special ed leaders for these meetings. We are recording them, we are posting them so that, others can definitely tune in and hear the message that's being delivered. We want that, we value that, but our special ed leaders are the ones that you all have to make the change in your districts. You all have to be working on these issues. So we really want to make sure that we really target this message to you and work with you on these important topic-based issues. And then anything else that we need to share so that we're not hitting that kind of overload button quite so much through these meetings. We're just going to put in our special ed updates. So you'll be receiving written updates. You can sign up for our special ed updates. Anybody can get on the list. We welcome you to get the information. We will automatically send the updates to anyone who is designated through directory assistance as a special education director. So if you're designated as a special education director, you will get it automatically, but you can also sign up for it. And I know that we included information in that in our last meeting about how to sign up. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask in the chat, but we can just make sure we get you signed up for the updates. I would encourage you to take a look there. If we're going to try to spend less time going over quite as many different items in this meeting, then I would just ask that you take that time to read our updates. We will send them out periodically. We're also archiving them so that you don't have to worry, did I miss something? You could go back and find them on our website and use them as a resource. So we're just trying to shift the way in which we interact with you, that we communicate with you, keeping it all visible, keeping it all public, but streamlining it a lot further. So when we talk about upcoming topics, we know that this month, and I'll talk about this again at the end, today, we're going back over reopening school with a real emphasis on students with documented medical issues. We're going to be talking about our new timeout guidance, our timeout room guidance that we're releasing today. So that's a real emphasis for this meeting. So really kind of two topics for today. We know that at the end of the month, we're going to be going in depth on equitable services and proportionate share. So that's on September 24th. In October, we look ahead to the replacement document for what was ICERS and is now our guidance on referral, evaluation, and eligibility. So that will be a real focus for our October meeting. We might have one additional guidance document to talk about in October, which is a focus on students who are in institutional settings and special education services for students in institutional settings. So perhaps 2 topics for October. And then for November and December, you gave us feedback on what other topics do you want to really focus on further? And, just to let you know, really appreciated the response that we received. There was a real desire for this continual update on advisories. So as DESE puts out any kind of guidance or technical assistance advisories, using these meetings to focus on that. Also a request around dyslexia really stood out. So that and those and other topics definitely rose to the top. We are paying close attention to the types of topics that you said you wanted to delve into further in these meetings, and that will be what we look ahead to for November and December and beyond. So thank you for that feedback. We look forward to continue to bring you these topics. We know though that right now I'm looking at, we have about 300 participants. That's great. I was expecting it to be a little smaller here at the beginning of the school year. But we are sending the message out, the invitation for these meetings and the Zoom link to special education administrators. We're now getting contacted by other people in the district saying, can I join the meeting? Can you send me the link? What we'd appreciate is that, if you want, you could certainly have people come into a conference space as appropriate, as is safe right now, but with whatever safety precautions you feel like you need to put in place. But you could certainly have a group screening if it is possibly that interesting, or you could share, a link from within your district, maybe just asking, sort of maybe designating maybe one other person, because, we can go up to 1,000 and we're way off from 1,000 today, obviously. But, we would prefer for you to try to control if you are going to invite anyone else from your district. And we hope that you'll look at the topics and decide, maybe based on a certain topic, it would be great to bring your business manager. It'd be great to have your out of district coordinator, whatever it might be. We're glad for you to kind of manage who else might need to be in these meetings, particularly where we're letting you know that we're going deeper on certain topics as we go forward. So I hope that's helpful around kind of where we're going with these meetings, and kind of trying to go back to where we were before COVID with sort of more topic-based meetings where our audience, where we used to meet in person with special ed leaders. The difference is that we're just doing it over Zoom, we're recording it, and we'll look forward to just seeing how this works and taking your feedback and going forward from there. We will not be recording the Q&A session, so we will stop the recording just before we get there and have it posted so that anyone can see the content of what we're reviewing together. The final thing that I'll just mention briefly is that I talked about restructuring these meetings. DESE has actually also restructured this week. And so there have been some changes that have happened here. And I think they're really for the positive. I'm very excited about what's changing here. So just to let you all know that our special ed team in the past has always, under my direct direction, has been the Special Education Planning and Policy Office, Public School Monitoring, Approved Special Education Schools, Special Education Institutional Settings. And I'm very excited to announce, and I know our PRS team is with us here today, but PRS is officially joining us as well as part of my center. And I've always appreciated the collaboration we've had in the past. So I hope this just builds on a strength of good communication and information sharing and decision making. And I hope with this change, what you'll see from a special ed perspective is just kind of more consistency around how policy and monitoring and complaint resolution all fit together. Again, not that we were in a place where it wasn't working, we just want it to work even better. So really look forward to working with us all together. And my team also reminded me that I haven't officially shared with you just quite yet that Jamie Camacho is officially our Director of Special Education Planning and Policy. So congratulations to Jamie, and Lauren Viviani is our Assistant Director of Special Education Planning and Policy. And it might be helpful in the future just to show a slide of who we are and how we work, because I know that sometimes many of you sort of get a name from within our office and send us emails, which is fine, but it might be good to know like who to direct certain questions to if we can show you what this looks like on paper of who does what around here. But we're really excited to be with you here today. We're really excited about embracing this change and kind of leaning into it together to create hopefully just the best possible service that we can provide to you so that you can provide the best possible services to students and families. So just going back over some new information, actually is really mainly what we have for you today. Kind of a combination of both, bridging from the known to some new information. Just to start with, we want to talk with you about kind of where you can find important information on our website, kind of as a lead up to how we think about providing services in very limited cases remotely, and want to go over what those instances are. But we've definitely heard that there's a lot that DESE has available, but where do you actually find it on our website? So really with this slide, and hope you'll reference it later, is we have COVID-related links on our website. They're all under the top banner. When you go to our website, there's the top banner that remains there around, click here for COVID-19 related information. And our special ed site, I just want to point out our special ed page from within our COVID-related links includes our letter to parents. And so just a reminder that we hope you'll send that out soon, the letter to families, and appreciate your willingness to do so, as well as our FAQ, which we updated last July, and all of the webinar recordings. The on the desktop link is where you can go to find protocols, which I know are really, really important right now to know how do you respond to different COVID-19 scenarios around students who are symptomatic, students who are close contacts, and we've included a flowcharts document just so that there's a visual way of following those scenarios from start to finish. So I hope you'll use those if you haven't already. Our FAQs, and I'm going to show you an important FAQ in just a minute, but our FAQ are all listed here, and then our testing program, I wanted to make sure you had that page as well. So glad to, for today, as we think about reopening, if you have any questions about protocols or, even the testing program or remote learning, that's really what we want to save plenty of time for Q&A today. So, but want to let you know outside of asking questions today where you can maybe find some of the information that you need. So like I said, kind of all lead up to how do we think about unique circumstances where students might need to learn remotely. And let's just start with if you have a positive case in a school and students need to quarantine. So that could be an instance where students need to learn from home. So what I want to point out to you is that in our August 20th FAQ, we explained that by and large, there are not full-time remote learning options this year that would count towards structured learning time. However, if students are isolating or quarantining, and if the school has the ability to allow students to join their schedule remotely, those are the key words, joining their schedule remotely, then they can do so. So what does that look like? That might be students who are able to live stream from the class, while the rest of the class is in person. Is it possible for students to live stream in order to join their schedule? We've also heard in some cases, and we really hope this is very much minimized during this year, it's not our advice to quarantine a whole classroom, but if a whole classroom does need to quarantine, the whole classroom could shift with the teacher who's also perhaps either quarantining or working from school. The teacher could deliver information remotely to their whole class while the whole class is quarantining. So they're either live streaming or virtual remote learning if the whole class is in quarantine are possible as long as you're able to follow the schedule. And then always just keeping in mind that particularly our youngest learners would struggle, of course, to be able to be in a Zoom like this or a Google Meet or a Teams meeting all day. And so obviously some balancing of some asynchronous time, but by and large, it's meant that it passes the sniff test that the student is able to join their schedule remotely. So just want to go back over that with you because there's been a lot of question about it. I know I've gone over this quite a bit. You might be saying, I'm a special ed director. I just want you to know that I felt like it was still important for you to hear this. But also I have been talking to district leaders about this quite a bit as part of the webinars that I run on our protocols and testing system for the whole state. Now let's just go back one more time. And I know I've shown this slide many, many times, and you've been very patient with me on this. I'm just going to breathe a little bit more life into this. We've talked about students who might have a medical requirement and require those home and hospital services. You're very familiar with, the home hospital tutoring form. You know that we've created the Q&A guide. Throughout the summer, we've talked about additionally students with disabilities, students with IEPs who might not be able to be in person for more than 60 days, could have a document from a physician that would say that the team needs to reconvene and figure out how can the child receive FAPE when they're learning remotely. So I'm just going to pause there for a second because we've been getting lots and lots of questions, understandably, from special ed directors about, so how do we do that? How do we provide FAPE remotely? And I've been very encouraged by the types of ideas that you've been sharing with me. I've heard about, for example, districts that are teaming up with education collaboratives and providing some services on their own, some services through the collaborative, for example. Those services could include virtual learning, so learning over technology. They might also include in-home services. So a student's day could be balanced between some in-home services, some virtual services, possibly some asynchronous time as well as appropriate. But by and large, you're able to provide the students access to the general education curriculum, their FAPE requirement, by being creative about how we can do that. And I've really appreciated the ideas that you shared with me that have kind of inspired me to bring this to you today to say, when we think about that student and the team is sitting together and trying to decide how to do it, let's put all options on the table. And Allison Bagg is about to present you with another one in just a minute, a new one that I'm pretty excited to bring to you today. But you can really kind of bring all options to bear that, work with whatever that student needs. If they can have staff members in the home, let's think about that. And how can you, find those staff members either from within your own staff or maybe looking to education collaboratives. There are maybe different ways or other vendors, other partners who could provide those services. So just thinking about that in lots of creative ways. I know I've heard from people who've been a little concerned about providing virtual learning through technology to students, saying, but didn't you say that doesn't count towards structured learning time? In this case, it does. In this case, where you have a documented medical need, it does count, it can count. And remember, here's my last part before I turn it over to my colleague, Allison, is that the same thing that I just talked about can also apply in some instances to siblings. And so we aren't deciding which siblings this applies to or not, because we think that's really best understood by the district. And so, as I've said, quite a few times here recently, the remote or virtual option, everything that I just talked about, live streaming, about virtual learning, about in-home services, doesn't have to, it's up to you, to siblings, and just encouraging that creativity to figure that out, and appreciate the diligence that's taking. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying that it is possible, and I appreciate your concerted effort to make it happen. So with that as kind of a backdrop, I'd love now to turn it over, like I said, to my highly esteemed colleague, Allison Bagg, to talk to you a little bit more about another option using our virtual schools for students with documented medical needs. Allison.
Good morning. Thank you, Russell. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to join you today. I work in the Center for Educational Options, and as part of that work, I work with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts virtual schools, and that is why I've been asked to join this great group. So the department is making an additional option available for districts to supplement current services for students who cannot attend school in person due to a documented medical need. So I'm here to preview some forthcoming information for districts who may need to purchase courses from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts virtual schools, the CMVSs, for students who cannot attend school in person due to these documented medical needs. And you will receive some more information is planned to be shared on Monday about this option. So districts, including charter schools and educational collaboratives, may purchase individual courses or a bundle of grade level courses from one or both of the CMVSs. Those are the Commonwealth Virtual Schools on a limited basis. So students there are a few things to remember about this purchase. Students accessing these virtual courses would need to remain fully enrolled in their district. They would not be enrolled in the CMVS as a full-time student, but rather they would continue to take some courses remotely through the CMVS and receive services from their current district. So we are asking that, if you purchase services from if you purchase courses from the CMVS, the district provides any services and the district must provide at least one course. That's very important to clarify. So as I said, on Monday, you will receive information about these CMVS course offerings. You'll get brief descriptions and costs and contact information. I really encourage you to review all the information carefully. You may contact either CMVS directly to determine the best fit for the needs that you have for your students and families. Districts will still be responsible for including a visual component as part of a daily live check-in that's needed to support students who are receiving a remote model of instruction. So even though the student is taking courses from the CMVS, the district is providing a daily visual check-in to ensure student well-being, providing those services. So we do ask that remote learning requires that students have opportunities to interact with a teacher every school day. And that daily live check-in would provide the district with key information about student engagement in those virtual courses and also their well-being. There is more information forthcoming on Monday, and my contact information will be listed in that information. So you may always reach out to me or the CMVSs with further questions. And thank you.
Thanks, Allison. I really appreciate that. And, because we're running quickly here, we've actually included the information in the chat today. And so there will be more information in the weekly update, which will really just be a brief explanation of what you can find. But we wanted to make sure that special ed directors could begin to access this information as soon as possible. We know that you've told us in the past, like, when you tell us about things, Russell, please make them immediately available to us. And so we've actually done that, and really appreciate Allison and that whole team for making sure that we have that available both for today and for Monday, like Allison said. And so would just encourage people to take a look at what's in the document. Allison, are you able to stick around at the end just to see what questions people might have?
I am. I'll be here. Thanks.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, Allison. Thanks for being here and sharing this great opportunity with us. Great. So just then, like I said, 2 topics for today. So that's one. The second one is really a focus on our guidance on timeout rooms that we are releasing right now. So it's another document that Lauren will be putting in the chat. Let me just give you a little bit of background on this. So we were we are just very grateful for all that you are doing to get ready for this new school year. We know how busy and challenging the time is that the time of year that it is for you. And so we bring you this guidance document with deference to the fact that we know that you have a lot on your plate, and we are adding one more thing for you to take a look at, but we do so with a real emphasis on just incorporating it, thinking about what's in this document and what are the things that you might need to prioritize about your own practices as it very much relates to welcoming students back. We know that our students have gone through a very traumatic experience. COVID's been hard on us all. It's been hard on our young people. And how are we creating the safest schools possible for our young learners is something that I know we are all very much focused on. And so I hope when you think about this document that we're sharing with you today, you think about it in terms of not just like one more thing from DESE, that's my hope, but that instead you look at it as we have to approach education differently because of what our children have gone through. We need to maximize learning. We need to figure out how we have our children spend as much time in the classroom as possible. And I'm sure we can all agree that students being removed from the classroom into a timeout room, separate from the classroom, um, can be necessary, but it also is limiting them in their access to general education. That's time away from learning. And after everything our students have gone through, what we want first and foremost is just to have students safely in the classroom, ready for learning. And so when I bring you this document today, when I'm going to share it with you a little bit further, I just want you to put it into the context of we need to shift right now. We need to provide services in a way that are very much understanding of the inequitable impacts of COVID on our young learners. We know that we need to just be present for our students in a way that's different in the past. And so maybe there's some things we need to shift. And what I hope that you see when you hear what I have to go over with you today, and when you read the document, is that there are probably a lot of things they're doing well. And we're very encouraged by that. We know that, particularly the approved special education schools have really had to focus on timeout rooms a lot. And this shouldn't come as something where we're saying to them or any of you that, there necessarily has to be a huge change. But again, we hope that you approach this with an open mind and say, but there might be some things we need to improve upon, again, just to reduce that time that students have to spend out of classroom and to be in the classroom more. We went to a lot of experts. We started by saying, hey, when we approached this last spring, let's find out what the experts say on this topic about the use of timeout rooms, because it's not something that we've given a lot of guidance on in the past. Then we went to you and others. We went to a lot of different stakeholder groups and said, tell us what's going on, tell us what is working, what needs to be changed. And that's really what we bring to you today in terms of this guidance document. So without any further ado, let me get into it a little bit further. But, again, maybe thinking about what I'm going to go over right now is kind of a self-assessment. You might say to me, like, Russell, I know that, or I'm doing that. And, frankly, Russell, don't talk down to me. I hear you on that. It might be some of what I'm sharing with you just could be good messages for you to pass on. So don't necessarily see you as being the only audience for this. In fact, we are very much committed to making sure that superintendents and principals get this message as well. A lot of what we heard from you was, let's make sure that the principals are on board with any change to the use of timeout rooms, and delve in further there. The other thing that I really want to comment on is that I've absolutely been in schools where timeout is used extraordinarily well. That student that goes to the quiet calm space in the classroom, the yoga space in the classroom, I've seen it named all different things. That's fantastic. This guidance document is really focused on the use of timeout rooms. Again, just understanding that when we take the child out of the classroom and have them in a different space, that we're pausing learning at that point. And that's why we want to give just a little bit, more kind of considered thought to when students are out of the classroom, when we're using timeout room. All right, let's take a look and see what we've got here. So just to start with, our goal right now is just to increase the time that students can learn with their peers, and therefore eliminating that use of timeout rooms. I'm sure that if we could all say we'd never use them again, we'd all say great, but we know that that's a process. And we know that in some cases they might still need to be used. We understand that, but if we all take the idea that what's precious about students in school is that learning time with their peers. So we've broken the advisory into 4 sections. Promoting social emotional well-being of students, adopting alternatives to reduce or eliminate the use of timeout rooms, and important safeguards if you are using timeout rooms. And then finally, our state and federal resources. So just starting first by thinking about promoting, those proactive strategies that promote students' social emotional well-being. A lot of this, again, this is where you might say to me, like, Russell, I'm here with you. I get this, that we need to have school-wide evidence-based systems focusing on the whole students, where there are predictable classroom routines and expectations, that safe and supportive relationship and strong sense of community and belonging, so crucial, and particularly right now as we welcome our students back. And a lot of what, there's more about this topic in our Promoting Student Engagement Learning well-being and safety guidance document. And if you remember, we went over that together a couple of meetings ago. So take a look there about just some more ideas about promoting that sense of belonging. Our acceleration roadmap also goes into that as a really, like, that's step one in the acceleration roadmap. So please take a look there. Then thinking a little bit more about supporting individual students, and this might be, again, some a slide or information that you just want to make sure that you pass on to your teams as well, or wherever there might be roadblocks to this, if you're thinking about it as a self-assessment. But we know that IEP teams have to consider the use of positive behavioral interventions and supports in cases where students' behavior interferes with their learning. So we want to get parent voices in that, guardians, caregivers, so that we get their ideas about strategies that might be helpful. We want to use data to know what's working or not. But here's the thing that I think is important, and I'll just talk from the personal. When I think about my own professional experiences, were there times when we kept using the same behavioral strategy over and over again, even when it wasn't working anymore, even when we had to keep using it and things weren't getting better. And so I do think about timeout rooms that way a bit, of like, and maybe that's where that self-assessment comes in, where we say, are there students where we're having to repeatedly take them to that timeout room, and maybe just stepping back and having more of an appreciation for the time that that's removing them from learning, and saying, maybe we need to rethink this. Maybe we need to, see if these repeat incidences require us to reevaluate, what we're doing right now, and is it working? And then if a student doesn't have an IEP, maybe those students who are having those repeat instances as well, we're saying to ourselves, does that student need to be evaluated as, for special education? So just something to think about. But for me, it's that second to the last bullet that kind of hit home for me a lot around. I know there were situations where we probably could have, hit pause a little more and considered new or different supports and services, which I think is a great lead into what are some of the alternatives, because sometimes we just sort of get into patterns and we keep doing the same thing over and over. And so what we maybe need to illuminate and reflect on ways that we could use other strategies rather than timeout rooms. Just thinking about, again, the consequences of using timeout rooms does result in, we can see it as an academic loss. It can result in trauma to the child for sure. So instead, what we want to do is think about, ways that we can, support students to have more learning time, and getting ideas from family and the community to do so. Sometimes it's not just the student who we need to think about. It might also be the staff. I loved going to a program not so many years ago, an approved special education school, where and I've told my team about this all the time, where they have signs up all over the building that says, essentially, like, you might need to get tapped out. Like if somebody sees you as a staff member becoming dysregulated, you might not recognize it in yourself. And so it's a norm in this school that somebody might come along, Allison could come along and just tap me on the shoulder. And I just understand that means I got to step away from this situation and let somebody else come to deal with it, who might be better self-regulated than I am as a staff member. So what are those co-regulation opportunities that we can provide to both staff and students, and how can we use funding to do so? So again, with some of the funding opportunities that we have available right now, this could be a good time to rethink our use of timeout rooms. So as we think about, if you are using timeout rooms, just to make sure that we're following all the requirements that are in our regulations, and we know that the approved special education schools have very specific requirements as well. And it's really important that we always think about the spaces as being clean, safe, sanitary, and appropriate for the purposes of calming. I do know that, I've personally been into some schools, and we've, received some complaints about the use of timeout rooms. And when we look at them, this is again where that self-assessment would come in, of like, are these rooms definitely clean, safe, sanitary, and appropriate for the purposes of calming? What would that room look like? Like, if we step back and said, what would that look like as opposed to what are we using right now? It might help us sort of, really reflect what the regulations require around those requirements for the space. So we'd just love for you, again, as we start this new school year, to think about, if you are using those spaces, are they genuinely meeting our requirements? And then remembering that if you are using timeout rooms, we need that continuous observation by a staff member, ceasing timeout as soon as the student has calmed. Again, learning time is precious. We want the student to get back to the classroom. We don't want them in this timeout room. And then making sure that we get the approval of the principal if a timeout is lasting more than 30 minutes. We move into some recommendations, and a lot of, we did get feedback to say, Russell, make it very, very clear that these are recommendations and not requirements. And so we did, the document begins with a statement about that. And so when I get into some additional recommendations right now, I want to make sure that you are taking them as such. And again, they could be good for prioritizing what maybe you need to do, or self-assessing what might need to change or improve. But is there someone who you could designate to just regularly check for cleanliness? These rooms could, maybe they're not being observed as much. Are they falling into any kind of disrepair? So whose job is it just to check for cleanliness? Communication with parents is something we've heard a lot about. Remember how I told you we went out for very extensive stakeholder engagement, over 20 stakeholder groups that we met with, that included, again, families, attorneys, specialists, special education directors, superintendents. We talked with a lot of different groups, and we definitely heard the desire for more transparency with families. If your child, we heard about, children being put in timeout rooms, but parents not knowing about it, and maybe hearing about it from their child and not liking that. So is there a way that we can make sure that if you are using timeout spaces, that there's notification to the parent verbally when the student, like immediately afterwards, and then written notification as well is a recommended practice. So again, that might be one, again, that I just really ask you to think about a lot about, do parents know what's happening with their children in our schools if timeout is being used? And just making sure that who's able to help that child calm down. You might need to think about who has that best relationship with the student, and then always debriefing. Such an important thing about restraint, right? That we debrief afterwards to find out what happened and how can we reduce. How can we learn from the restraint experience to make sure we maybe don't do it again? That same type of debriefing with staff in particular, but also with the student, is so important to hopefully just break the cycle, right? To make sure that we're doing less of this as we go along. Data analysis. How are we going to know if we're reducing or eliminating the use of timeout rooms without data analysis? We will be sharing with you a timeout log that maybe you could use for just checking to see, what's the pattern, because what might seem like a lot to one person is very few to another. We want to know the facts. How much is timeout being used, and how can we maybe use a timeout log to investigate that, to explore that, and then to know if some alternatives are having better outcomes for students, and that again, that we're keeping students in the classroom calmly and safely instead of having to go to timeout rooms. And just like our restraint data, a recommendation, just reviewing that timeout data to identify trends, and then looking at next steps as well is just so important at the principal level. So our next steps with regard to our timeout guidance here is that, like I said before, we know that we need to get this information in front of superintendents and principals and not just special education directors. So we are committed to doing so. In the meantime, you can definitely start to use this to share and discuss it with educators in your school. So next steps for us, potentially next steps for you. We've right now put out an RFI to just understand the universe of behavioral intervention programs that promote a lot of these same strategies. So again, what we might be talking about here might be some different ways of doing business. And so we want to know who's out there to partner with districts to make that change. So we've put out what we call a request for information to get that information. And that will help us just understand who the kind of partner universe is more. That could lead us to then a grant opportunity so that you can pilot some of the alternatives that could help to reduce or eliminate the use of timeout. And then we just want to make sure we just continue our focus on this topic by further engagement and collaboration with stakeholders. So that's really it about the guidance document. I hope that you have a chance to take a look at it. And again, just to put into that context of, students reentering our schools, having gone through the challenges of the pandemic, and we really need to maximize their time in the classroom. So what are some changes that we need to make in this area, in the use of timeout rooms, to make that happen? So appreciate your attention to that, appreciate our focus on that, and look forward to whatever questions that you might have as well. So what we have forthcoming for us is our next meeting on September 24th. Like I mentioned before, that will be solely focused on equitable services and proportionate share. So if you're thinking about who from my district really needs to hear this message, are there others that I want to have join with me? You could invite private schools in your area to join you, because it could be, as we go over the whole thing from soup to nuts, that could be a good jumping off point to say, what are we doing? How are we working together across the special education department and the private school, the homeschool, to think about how we pull these pieces together. So that's on September 24th at 12:30. We look forward to being back with you then. And now I'm just going to turn it over to Jamie for our Q&A session together.